Natalie Hartwell had always trusted her instincts. As a financial consultant, she had built her career on reading patterns others missed, on noticing the small inconsistencies in spreadsheets that revealed larger problems. Numbers did not lie. People did. And for the past 3 months, her husband Chad had become a column of figures that refused to balance. It started small. So small, she convinced herself she was imagining things. Chad came home at the usual time, kissed her on the cheek with the same familiar pressure, asked about her day with the same inflection he had used for 12 years of marriage. He helped their 6-year-old daughter Ivy with homework, loaded the dishwasher, folded laundry while watching the evening news. On paper, nothing had changed. But Natalie had spent 15 years analyzing what existed between the lines, and between the lines of her marriage, something fundamental had shifted. Chad was present, but absent. His body occupied space in their home, but his mind lived somewhere else entirely. When she spoke to him, there was a half-second delay before he responded, as if he had to travel back from a distant place to hear her words. His phone, once left carelessly on kitchen counters and bedside tables, now remained constantly in his pocket. He checked it compulsively, the way people checked their reflection in mirrors, reassuring themselves of something only they could see. Their bedroom had become a polite arrangement between strangers. Chad still slept on his side of the bed, still set his alarm for 6:30 in the morning, still kissed her goodnight, but the kiss landed somewhere near her forehead, a gesture performed by muscle memory rather than desire. When was the last time he had really looked at her? When was the last time his hand had reached for hers without prompting? She could not remember, and that terrified her more than anything else. Natalie tried to rationalize it. Chad worked long hours as a hospital administrator. The pressure was immense. Budget cuts, staffing shortages, regulatory demands. Of course he was distracted. Of course he seemed tired. She was tired too. They were both tired. That was marriage after 12 years, after a child, after building careers and managing a household, and navigating the 1,000 small negotiations that comprised a shared life. This was normal. This was just a phase. But her instincts, honed by years of finding truth in numbers, refused to be silenced. Something was wrong. She felt it the way she felt an approaching storm, a change in atmospheric pressure that preceded the rain. On a Tuesday evening in late September, Natalie sat in her home office reviewing a client portfolio. Ivy was upstairs in her bedroom, supposedly reading before bed. Chad had come home 20 minutes earlier, eaten dinner with them, and retreated to the living room with his laptop. The house felt heavy with unspoken words, thick with the kind of silence that demanded to be broken. Natalie closed her laptop and walked to the living room. Chad sat on the sofa, blue light from his screen illuminating his face. He looked younger in that light, or perhaps just unfamiliar. How long had it been since she had really studied his features? The small scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood accident, the way his jaw tightened when he concentrated, the slight graying at his temples that made him look distinguished rather than old. "Chad," she said softly. He looked up, and for just a moment, she saw something in his eyes. Guilt? Fear? The expression vanished so quickly she wondered if she had imagined it. "Yeah? Are we okay?" The question hung between them like a physical object. Chad's fingers stilled on the keyboard. He smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "Of course we are. Why would you ask that?" "I don't know. You just seem distant lately. Like you are somewhere else, even when you are here. Work has been stressful. You know how it is at the hospital right now. We are implementing new software systems, and everyone is resisting the change. It has been exhausting." The explanation was reasonable, logical, but it felt rehearsed, like a speech he had prepared for precisely this question. Natalie wanted to push further, to ask the questions that clawed at her throat. "Are you happy? Do you still love me? Is there someone else?" But she swallowed the words. She was not ready to hear the answers. "Okay," she said instead. "I just wanted to make sure." Chad returned his attention to his laptop. The conversation closed. Natalie went back to her office, but she could not focus on the numbers in front of her. She stared at her computer screen until the figures blurred together, until she could no longer tell assets from liabilities. That night, she lay awake while Chad slept beside her, or pretended to sleep. She could not tell any more. The man beside her was both completely familiar and entirely unknown. 12 years of marriage, and she felt like she was sleeping next to a stranger. The next morning was a Wednesday. Natalie woke at 6, showered, dressed in the navy suit she wore when she needed to feel confident. She made breakfast for Ivy, packed her lunch, braided her dark blonde hair into the neat plait she loved. Chad came downstairs already dressed for work, accepted the coffee she handed him, kissed Ivy on the top of her head. "I have meetings all day," he said. "I will probably be home around 7. "Okay," Natalie replied. He left without kissing her goodbye. She told herself it did not matter. It was just a kiss. Just a small omission in a morning routine. But she felt its absence, like a missing tooth, her tongue constantly returning to the empty space. Natalie dropped Ivy at school and drove to her office. She had 3 client meetings scheduled, presentations she had prepared meticulously. But throughout the day, her mind kept drifting. She found herself staring at her wedding ring, twisting it around her finger. White gold, simple and elegant, the way she had wanted it 12 years ago. Chad had proposed on a beach at sunset, the kind of romantic gesture that seemed borrowed from a movie. She had said yes without hesitation. She had been so certain then. When had the certainty faded? That evening, Natalie came home before Chad. She picked up Ivy from after-school care, listened to her daughter's excited chatter about the art project they had made, about her best friend Emma, who had lost another tooth, about the class hamster who had escaped its cage. Ivy's world was still whole and uncomplicated. Natalie wanted to preserve that innocence for as long as possible. They were making dinner together when Ivy said casually, "Mommy, can I go to the park with Daddy again this Saturday?" Natalie paused, knife hovering over the bell pepper she was slicing. "What do you mean, honey?" "Like last Saturday, when Daddy took me to the park and I played with my friend." "What friend?" Ivy shrugged, her 6-year-old attention already drifting. "I don't know her name. She is little like me. Her mommy talks to Daddy a lot." The knife slipped. Natalie felt the blade nick her finger, watched a thin line of blood appear. She set the knife down carefully and ran her finger under cold water. The pain was sharp and clarifying. "Tell me about last Saturday, baby. What park did Daddy take you to?" "The big one, with the swings and the slide that goes really fast. Daddy sat on the bench with the lady, and I played with her daughter. She has brown hair like me." Natalie's heart hammered against her ribs. She kept her voice steady. "What lady, Ivy?" "My friend's mommy. She is nice. She gave me a granola bar when I was hungry." "And Daddy knows her?" "I think so. They talked a lot. Can we go again? I like playing with her. She let me use her bucket in the sandbox." Natalie finished preparing dinner on autopilot. She smiled at Ivy, asked more questions about school, acted as though her entire world had not just shifted on its axis. But inside, something cold and certain had crystallized. This was not paranoia. This was not exhaustion or imagination. This was real. Chad came home at 7:15, exactly when he said he would. He greeted them both, washed his hands, sat down for dinner. They ate together like a normal family. Ivy told Chad about her day. He responded appropriately, asked follow-up questions, praised her for being kind to the new student in her class. He was performing fatherhood perfectly, the way an actor performs a familiar role. Natalie watched him across the table. His face showed nothing. No guilt, no nervousness, no sign that he was living a double life. Either he was an exceptional liar, or she was losing her mind. She needed to know which. After dinner, after Ivy was in bed, Natalie sat beside Chad on the sofa. He was scrolling through his phone, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. She waited for him to notice her, to ask if something was wrong. He did not look up. "Chad," she said finally, "Did you take Ivy to the park last Saturday?" His thumb stopped moving. For just a moment, everything froze. Then he looked at her, eyebrows raised in polite confusion. "What? Ivy mentioned you took her to the park. To the big one, with the fast slide?" "Oh, yeah, I did. She wanted to go, and you were working on that presentation for the Henderson account? Why? You did not mention it." He shrugged. "Didn't I? It was just a quick trip. She was bored, and I needed some air. She said you talked to a woman there, that she played with the woman's daughter." Chad's expression did not change. If anything, he looked slightly amused. "Natalie, it is a public park. There were probably 20 parents there. I might have said hello to someone. Do not specifically remember. Ivy seemed to think you talked to her for a while. Ivy is 6. Her concept of time is not exactly reliable." He turned back to his phone, the conversation apparently over. "Is there something you are actually worried about? Or are you just in an interrogating mood tonight?" The casualness of his tone, the slight edge of irritation, made her doubt herself. Was she being paranoid? Reading too much into innocent interactions? Creating problems where none existed? "I am not interrogating you," she said quietly. "I am just trying to understand." "Understand what?" "I took our daughter to the park. That is what good fathers do." He stood, stretching. "I have an early meeting tomorrow. I am going to bed." He left the room without waiting for her response. Natalie sat alone in the living room, listening to the house settle around her. She thought about the look on his face when she had first asked the question, that moment of stillness, that fractional pause before he responded. Numbers did not lie, and the numbers were not adding up. Natalie did not sleep that night. She lay in the darkness beside Chad, listening to his breathing, studying the rhythm to determine if he was truly asleep or merely pretending. At 3 in the morning, she slipped out of bed and went downstairs to her office. She sat at her desk in the dark, staring at nothing, trying to organize her thoughts the way she organized financial data. What did she actually know? What could she prove? Chad had taken Ivy to a park. He had spoken with a woman. Their daughters had played together. These were facts. Everything else was interpretation, suspicion, the paranoid constructions of a wife who had watched too many movies about infidelity. Except Natalie's career depended on trusting her instincts about patterns, and every instinct she possessed was screaming that something was catastrophically wrong. She opened her laptop and searched for the park Ivy had described. There was only one in their area, with both a fast slide and swings, a large municipal park about 15 minutes from their house. Natalie pulled up a map, studied the layout, memorized the parking areas and walking paths. Then she did something that made her feel simultaneously justified and ashamed. She logged into their shared cell phone account and downloaded Chad's location history. The data loaded slowly, tiny pins dropping onto a map like evidence at a crime scene. Work, home, grocery store, gas station. The ordinary geography of a married man's life. But there, every Saturday for the past 8 weeks, was the park. The timestamps showed he had been there for 2 to 3 hours each visit. Long enough for Ivy to play. Long enough for much more than casual conversation with a stranger. Natalie's hands shook as she scrolled through the data. She went back further. 3 months. 6 months. A year. The pattern emerged like a photograph developing in chemicals. For the past year, Chad had been going to that park almost every Saturday. Sometimes with Ivy. Sometimes, according to the timestamps, alone on weekday afternoons when he should have been at work. She checked his credit card statements next, pulling up their joint account. Lunch purchases at restaurants she had never heard of, always on weekdays, always for amounts that suggested 2 meals rather than 1. Coffee shops in neighborhoods he had no business visiting, a charge from a florist 3 weeks ago. Natalie had received no flowers. The sun rose while she sat at her desk, assembling evidence. At 6:30, she heard Chad's alarm. She heard the shower run, heard him moving through their bedroom. She stayed in her office until she heard the front door close, until his car pulled out of the driveway. Only then did she go upstairs. Ivy was still sleeping, her small body curled under her purple comforter, one arm wrapped around the stuffed rabbit she had owned since she was 2. Natalie stood in the doorway watching her daughter breathe, feeling something fierce and protective claw its way up her throat. Whatever was happening with Chad, Ivy could not be caught in the crossfire. Ivy, who still believed in fairy tales and happy endings, who thought her parents were perfect and invincible. Natalie got Ivy ready for school, made her scrambled eggs and toast, listened to her talk about the spelling test she had today. She braided her daughter's hair and kissed her forehead and told her she loved her. She dropped her at school and watched her run across the playground to her friends, backpack bouncing, completely unaware that her mother's world was disintegrating. Then Natalie drove home and called her office. She told her assistant she was working from home today to reschedule her morning appointments. She rarely took unscheduled time off. Her assistant asked if everything was okay. Natalie said yes, everything was fine. She just had some personal matters to handle. Personal matters. What a sterile way to describe the systematic destruction of a marriage. She sat in her home office and stared at her phone. She needed to know. She needed certainty. But hiring a private investigator felt like admitting defeat, like giving up on the possibility that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. It felt like the point of no return. Natalie thought about Chad's face last night, the easy denial, the slight amusement, as if her concerns were silly and unfounded. The way he had turned the situation around made her feel foolish for asking. That was gaslighting. She knew what gaslighting looked like. She had clients who had experienced it, who had described the slow erosion of their own judgment, the constant questioning of their own perceptions. She picked up her phone and searched for private investigators in the area. The first 3 websites looked unprofessional, like something from the 1990s. The fourth belonged to a woman named Helen Torres, former police detective, 23 years of experience, specialized in marital investigations. Her website was clean and professional. Her rates were high but not exploitative. Natalie called before she could change her mind. Helen answered on the second ring. Her voice was warm but businesslike. Torres Investigations. Hello, my name is Natalie Hartwell. I think my husband is having an affair and I need proof. The words came out flat and emotionless. Saying them aloud made them real in a way they had not been before. There was no taking them back now. I can help you with that, Helen said. Can you come to my office this afternoon? 2 o'clock? Yes, I will be there. Helen's office was in a modest building downtown, 3rd floor, end of the hall. The waiting area was small but impeccably clean. Motivational posters on the walls about truth and justice felt almost ironic. Helen herself was in her early 50s, short gray hair, kind eyes that had probably seen every variation of human betrayal. She shook Natalie's hand firmly and led her into a private office. Tell me everything, Helen said. So Natalie did. She talked for 45 minutes, laying out the timeline, the behavior changes, the emotional distance, Ivy's innocent revelation about the park. She showed Helen the location data, the credit card statements, the pattern of Saturday visits. Helen listened without interrupting, taking notes in a leather-bound notebook. When Natalie finished, Helen set down her pen and looked at her directly. I am not going to lie to you, Natalie. Based on what you have shown me, this looks like a classic affair pattern. The regular schedule, the secrecy, the gaslighting when confronted. I have seen this hundreds of times. So, what do? You hire me to get you proof, photographs, videos, documentation. If you decide to divorce, you will need evidence. If you decide to try to save the marriage, you need to know exactly what you are working with. Right now, you have suspicions. I can give you facts. How long will it take? Usually 48 to 72 hours for a case like this. Your husband has an established routine. That makes things easier. I will follow him this Saturday to the park. I will document who he meets, what they do, If there is an affair, I will find out who she is, where she lives, how long this has been going on. And if there is nothing, if I am just paranoid, Helen's expression softened. Then I will tell you that, and you will have peace of mind. But Natalie, in 23 years, I have only been hired by someone who was wrong 3 times. Your instincts are probably correct. Natalie signed the contract and wrote a check for the retainer. $5,000 to destroy her marriage, or to confirm it was already destroyed. She walked out of Helen's office feeling numb. She sat in her car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, unable to turn the key. This was real now. She had taken action. There was no pretending anymore. That evening, Chad came home at 7. He kissed Ivy, asked about her spelling test, praised her for getting 9 out of 10 words correct. He ate the dinner Natalie had prepared, a chicken casserole that tasted like cardboard in her mouth. He helped clean up, loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters. The perfect husband performing his perfect routine. "How was your day?" he asked her while they cleaned. "Fine. Busy. The Henderson account is moving forward." "That is great." He was not really listening. His attention was already drifting toward his phone on the counter. "How was yours?" "Long. Budget meetings all afternoon. You know how exciting those are." Lies came so easily to him now, or perhaps they always had, and she was only now learning to hear them. Natalie wondered how many lies he had told her over the past year. Hundreds? Thousands? Every "I love you" and "I will be home late" and "nothing is wrong," potentially hollow, potentially calculated. "Chad," she said suddenly, "are you happy?" He looked at her, surprised by the question. "What? Are you happy? In our marriage? With our life together?" He dried his hands on the dish towel, taking time to formulate his answer. "Of course I am." "Why would you ask that?" "I just feel like we have been disconnected lately. Like we are living parallel lives instead of a shared one." "That is just life, Natalie. We both work. We have a kid. We have responsibilities. It is not like when we first got married. That is normal. But we do not talk anymore." "Not really. We do not spend time together." "When was the last time we went on a date?" "I don't know. A couple months ago." 6 months. It has been 6 months. "Oy," he sighed, the sound heavy with irritation. "Okay, then let's go on a date. Pick a night this week, and I will make a reservation somewhere nice." But the offer felt obligatory, something checked off a list, rather than a genuine desire to reconnect. Natalie wondered if he would cancel at the last minute, if he would sit across from her at dinner and spend the entire evening on his phone, if going through the motions of marriage was worse than ending it. "Never mind," she said. "Forget I said anything." "Natalie." His tone shifted, became gentler. He reached for her hand. "I know things have been stressful, for both of us, but we are fine. We are solid. Do not create problems that do not exist." She looked at their joined hands. His grip was loose, easily broken. She could pull away, and he would not fight to hold on. She could feel the truth in the weakness of his touch. "Okay," she said. He squeezed her hand once and let go, satisfied that the moment of conflict had passed. He picked up his phone and walked toward the living room. Natalie stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the debris of their family dinner, and felt the weight of all her suspicions settle into certainty. Saturday morning arrived with brutal sunshine. Natalie woke early, before Chad, before Ivy. She showered and dressed in casual clothes, jeans and a sweater. She made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the clock. Chad came downstairs at 8:30, already dressed in athletic clothes. "Morning," he said, pouring himself coffee. "Morning. I am going to take Ivy to the park this morning. Give you some time to yourself. You have been stressed." There it was, the pattern repeating itself. Natalie felt something inside her crystallize into ice. "That is thoughtful," she said. "Which park?" "The one with the good playground. He loves that slide." "Okay, have fun." Ivy came downstairs in her purple leggings and unicorn shirt, excited about park time with Daddy. Natalie hugged her tight, breathed in the strawberry scent of her daughter's shampoo, and watched them leave. Chad's car pulled out of the driveway at 9:15. Natalie waited 10 minutes. Then she got in her own car and drove toward the park, but stopped 3 blocks away. She parked on a side street where she could see without being seen. Helen Torres had told her not to come, to let the investigator do her job, but Natalie needed to see with her own eyes. At 9:45, a silver sedan pulled into the park parking lot. A woman got out. She was younger than Natalie, probably early 30s. Dark hair pulled into a ponytail. Pretty in an understated way. She opened the back door and helped a little girl out of her car seat. The child ran toward the playground. The woman followed, checking her phone as she walked. 5 minutes later, Chad's car arrived. Natalie watched her husband get out, watched Ivy run toward the playground, and then she watched Chad walk directly to the woman. He did not hesitate. He knew exactly where to find her. They sat on a bench together while the children played. Their body language was intimate, not touching, but close, leaning toward each other. Chad laughed at something she said. Natalie had not seen him laugh like that in months. She took photographs with her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she was not sure if the images would be clear. But she needed her own documentation, her own evidence that this was real, that she was not imagining things, that her marriage was actually ending right there on a sunny Saturday morning while children played on swings and slides. She watched for an hour. Chad and the woman talked continuously. At one point, he touched her hand briefly. The gesture was so casual, so natural, that it spoke of familiarity, of routine. This was not a new relationship. This was established, comfortable, real. Natalie drove home before they could see her. She sat in her driveway for 10 minutes, crying for the first time since this all started. Not loud, dramatic sobs, just silent tears streaming down her face, wetting her collar. She cried for the marriage she thought she had, for the man she thought she knew, for the family she thought was solid and unbreakable. Then she wiped her face, went inside, and waited for Helen Torres to call. Helen called at 4:30 that afternoon. Natalie was in her bedroom, staring at the ceiling, listening to Ivy and Chad play a board game downstairs. Their laughter drifted up through the floorboards, ordinary and domestic, a soundtrack to the disintegration of everything Natalie had built. "I have what you need," Helen said without preamble. "Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" "Yes, I will be there." Natalie went downstairs and found Chad and Ivy sprawled on the living room floor, game pieces scattered between them. Ivy was winning, judging by her triumphant expression. "I need to run out for a bit," Natalie said. "An issue with a client. I will be back in a couple hours." Chad looked up, barely registering her words. "Okay, we are good here." She drove to Helen's office with the radio off, needing the silence. The city moved around her, people going about their normal Saturday evenings, completely unaware that Natalie's entire existence was collapsing. How many of them were living lies, too? How many marriages were held together by nothing but routine and denial? Helen's office was empty except for the two of them. She led Natalie into the conference room and laid out a manila folder on the table. It was thick, bulging with documents and photographs. Natalie stared at it, not yet ready to open it, not yet ready to see the evidence that would destroy her life. "Before you look," Helen said gently, "I want you to prepare yourself. What is in here is comprehensive, and it is damning." Natalie opened the folder. The first photographs showed Chad and the woman at the park that morning. They were clear, professional, undeniable. Chad laughing, the woman touching his arm, both of them watching their daughters play, looking for all the world like a couple, like a family. "Her name is Vanessa Klein," Helen said. "She is 30 years old, works as a nurse at Regional Medical Center, the same hospital where your husband works." Of course it was someone from his workplace. The oldest cliché in the book. Natalie turned the page. More photographs. Chad and Vanessa, at a restaurant, sitting across from each other at a corner table, leaning in close. The timestamp showed a Tuesday afternoon, 1:15, when Chad should have been in budget meetings, when Ivy should have been in school. That was taken 3 days ago, Helen explained. I followed him on his lunch break. They were there for an hour and 45 minutes. Another photograph. Chad and Vanessa in the hospital parking lot, standing by her car, his hand on her lower back, her smiling up at him. Intimate, familiar, real. How long? Natalie's voice came out as a whisper. How long has this been going on? Based on what I could verify through social media, credit card records, and interviews with a few discreet sources, at least 2 years. Possibly longer. 2 years. Natalie felt the number hit her like a physical blow. 2 years of lies. 2 years of him coming home to her bed after being with someone else. 2 years of family dinners and weekend trips and birthday parties, all of it built on deception. There is more, Helen said carefully. Vanessa Klein is married. Her husband is Theodore Klein, an orthopedic surgeon, also at Regional Medical Center. They have been married for 9 years. They have 3 children, ages 8, 6, and 4. Natalie looked up sharply. She is married? With children? Yes. And according to my sources, her husband has no idea about the affair. He works long hours, does a lot of surgeries. Classic setup for this kind of situation. Natalie's mind raced. Another betrayed spouse. Another family built on lies. Children who had no idea their mother was living a double life. The scope of the devastation was staggering. I also have audio, Helen continued. She pulled out a small recording device and pressed play. Chad's voice filled the room, so familiar it made Natalie's chest ache. I know it is hard. I know you are tired of waiting, but I need to find the right moment. I cannot just leave out of nowhere. There's Ivy to think about, and Natalie's family is close to mine. It has to be done carefully. Vanessa's voice, softer, pleading. I understand. I do. But it has been 2 years, Chad. 2 years of sneaking around, of lying to everyone. I love you. I want a real life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning, not just steal a few hours here and there. I know. I want that too. I promise. It will happen. Just give me a little more time. What about Theodore? What about my kids? This is destroying me, living like this. We will figure it out together. Both of us will leave. We will handle the fallout, but we have to be smart about it. Strategic. I trust you. I just hope it is soon. I am so tired of pretending. Helen stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening. Where did you get this? Natalie asked. Vanessa's car. Small tracking and recording device, completely legal in this state when investigating infidelity. I placed it Thursday afternoon when she was at work. They met for coffee yesterday after her shift ended. That conversation happened in her car before they both went home to their respective families. Natalie stared at the photographs spread across the table. Her husband's face, relaxed and happy in a way he never looked at home anymore. Vanessa's expression, open and trusting. 2 people who believed they were in love, who believed they were the victims of their own circumstances rather than the architects of devastation. What do I do now? Natalie asked. That is up to you. Some people confront immediately. Some people wait and plan. Some people try counseling. Though I will tell you honestly, with an affair this long and this planned, counseling rarely works. He is already emotionally divorced from you. He is just waiting for the logistics to align. And her husband, Theodore? What about him? Does he know? Not yet, but he should. An idea began forming in Natalie's mind, a cold, calculated idea that felt both foreign and completely natural. She had spent her entire career analyzing complex situations and finding optimal solutions. This was just another problem to solve. The variables were emotional rather than financial, but the principle was the same. Can you find him for me? Natalie asked. Can you arrange for me to meet with Theodore Klein? Helen studied her carefully. Yes, I can do that, but Natalie, be very careful. Confronting the other spouse can go badly. Emotions run high. People do unpredictable things. I am not going to do anything unpredictable. I am going to do exactly what needs to be done, which is, I am going to tell him the truth. And then we are going to confront them together. Helen leaned back in her chair, a small smile playing at her lips. That is actually brilliant. The two betrayed spouses presenting a united front. It will be devastating for them. Good. They deserve to be devastated. Helen pulled out her laptop and started typing. Theodore Klein works at Regional Medical Center, but he also has a private practice. According to his schedule, which I can access through the hospital's public portal, he has consultations on Monday mornings. I can arrange for you to be there, ostensibly as a patient. You meet him, explain the situation in private, show him the evidence. Do it. Helen made the arrangements while Natalie sat in the conference room, studying the photographs of her husband with another woman. She tried to feel something other than cold fury, tried to find sadness or grief or even relief. But there was only ice. Chad had made his choices. He had lied to her face for 2 years. He had used their daughter as cover for his affair. He had gaslit her when she questioned him, made her feel paranoid and unreasonable. He deserved whatever consequences came next. You are scheduled for Monday at 9 in the morning, Helen said. Consultation for shoulder pain. Theodore Klein's office is on the 3rd floor of the medical building attached to the hospital. I will give you all the evidence in a thumb drive. Show it to him in private. See if he is willing to work with you. Thank you, Helen. One more thing. I know you are angry right now, and you have every right to be. But when you confront Chad, do not lose control. Stay calm. Stay factual. People like him rely on emotional chaos to deflect and deny. If you stay calm, you maintain power. Natalie nodded. She understood power dynamics. She understood leverage. And right now, she held all the leverage. She drove home with the evidence secured in her purse. The sun had set, leaving the sky bruised purple and orange, beautiful and terrible at the same time. When she walked into the house, Chad and Ivy were in the kitchen making dinner. Pasta with marinara sauce, Ivy's favorite. "Mommy!" Ivy ran to her, wrapping small arms around Natalie's waist. "We are making spaghetti!" Natalie hugged her daughter tight, breathing in the smell of her hair, feeling the solid warmth of her small body. This was what mattered. This was what she was fighting for. Not the marriage. That was already dead. But Ivy's stability, Ivy's happiness, making sure her daughter came through this intact. "That smells delicious," Natalie said, forcing brightness into her voice. Chad looked over from the stove. "How did it go with your client?" "Fine. Resolved." "Good." They ate dinner together. Natalie watched Chad across the table, wondering if he felt any guilt at all. If there was any moment when he looked at her and Ivy and felt the weight of what he was destroying. But his expression showed nothing. He was completely comfortable in his deception. It had become his normal. After dinner, after Ivy was in bed, Chad retreated to his laptop in the living room. Natalie went to her office and opened the thumb drive Helen had given her. She spent 2 hours reviewing every photograph, every document, every piece of evidence. She memorized timelines and locations. She prepared herself the way she prepared for major client presentations. Facts, figures, irrefutable proof. Sunday passed in surreal normalcy. They went to the farmer's market in the morning, had lunch at Ivy's favorite pizza place, spent the afternoon doing yard work while Ivy played in the sprinkler. To anyone watching, they looked like a happy family. A successful couple with a beautiful daughter and a nice house in a good neighborhood. The American dream. But Natalie felt like she was watching her life from outside her body. Every smile felt painted on. Every conversation felt scripted. She was performing the role of happy wife while simultaneously planning the systematic destruction of her marriage. That night, lying in bed beside Chad, she studied his face in the darkness. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of shared history. First apartment, wedding day, Ivy's birth, career changes, family vacations, All those moments, and now she wondered how many of them had been real. When had he stopped loving her? When had he started loving someone else? Or had there been no clear dividing line, just a gradual erosion of commitment until there was nothing left but habit? "Chad," she whispered. He stirred, but did not wake. She reached out and touched his shoulder, feeling the familiar shape of him. Once, she had known this body as well as her own. Now it felt foreign, a landscape she no longer had permission to explore. "I know," she whispered into the darkness. "I know everything." He slept on, unaware, untroubled, safe in his web of lies. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Natalie dressed carefully, professional but not severe. Navy blazer, gray slacks, low heels. She dropped Ivy at school, kissed her goodbye, watched her run toward the building. Then she drove to Regional Medical Center. The medical building was modern and sterile, all glass and chrome. Theodore Klein's office was on the third floor, down a long corridor lined with examination rooms. The waiting area was empty. Natalie checked in with the receptionist, gave her fake name, sat in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs. At 9 sharp, a nurse called her name. She followed into a consultation room. The nurse took fake vital signs, asked about the shoulder pain Natalie did not have, made notes in a chart. Then she left, promising the doctor would be in shortly. Natalie waited, heart pounding. This was it, the point of no return. Once she showed Theodore the evidence, once she set this plan in motion, there would be no going back. Her marriage would be over. The life she had built would be dismantled. Everything would change. The door opened. Theodore Klein walked in, tall and distinguished, probably in his early 40s, graying temples, confident posture. He looked like what he was, a successful surgeon, competent, trustworthy, someone you could count on to fix what was broken. He looked at the chart, then at Natalie. "Miss Anderson, I understand you are having shoulder pain?" "No," Natalie said quietly. "I am here to talk to you about your wife." Theodore froze. "Excuse me? My name is not Anderson. It is Natalie Hartwell. My husband is Chad Hartwell, the hospital administrator, and for the past 2 years, he has been having an affair with your wife, Vanessa." The color drained from Theodore's face. He stood completely still for a moment, processing. Then he carefully closed the door and sat down in the chair across from her. "You better have proof," he said, his voice tight. Natalie pulled out the thumb drive and handed it to him. "I have more than proof. I have documentation, photographs, and audio recordings. Everything you need to know is on here." Theodore held the thumb drive like it was a live grenade. "How long have you known?" "I suspected for 3 months. I had it confirmed 4 days ago." "And you are telling me because?" "Because they are both destroying our families. Because our children deserve better. And because I think we should confront them together." Theodore stared at her for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to his desk, and plugged the thumb drive into his computer. Natalie watched his face as he clicked through the files, watched shock turn to pain, turn to fury, watched a good man's world shatter in real time. When he finished, he ejected the drive and handed it back to her. His hands were shaking. "When?" he asked. "Thursday afternoon, after your wife's shift ends at 3. They will meet in the hospital parking lot. If the pattern holds, they will go to her car to talk before going home to their families. That is when we confront them, together, with all the evidence, so they cannot deny, cannot lie their way out." "Why Thursday? Why not now?" "Because I want them to think they are safe. I want them comfortable, and I want you to have time to process this, to decide what you want to do about your marriage, to arrange childcare if you need it. I have thought this through carefully, Theodore. Trust me." He laughed, a bitter sound. "Trust. That is funny. I trusted my wife. I trusted her completely. Worked 60-hour weeks so she could work part-time, be there for the kids. Never questioned where she was, what she was doing. And this whole time, I know," Natalie said softly. I know exactly how you feel." They sat in silence for a moment, two strangers bound by betrayal. "Okay," Theodore said finally. "Thursday, 3:30. I will be there." The next 3 days felt like walking through glass. Every moment was sharp and fragile, threatening to shatter at the slightest pressure. Natalie moved through her routine with mechanical precision, maintaining the facade of normalcy while her entire world balanced on the edge of collapse. Monday evening, Chad came home at 7:15, kissed Ivy on the head, asked about homework. They ate dinner together. Chicken stir-fry with vegetables. Ivy talked about the art project her class was making for Thanksgiving. Chad listened and responded appropriately, playing his role perfectly. After dinner, he helped Ivy with her math worksheet, while Natalie cleaned the kitchen. The picture of domestic tranquility. Later, after Ivy was asleep, Natalie sat in bed reading while Chad scrolled through his phone beside her. She watched him from the corner of her eye, noting the small smile that flickered across his face, the way his fingers moved quickly across the screen. Texting someone, probably Vanessa, making plans, discussing their future together. A future that would never happen. "What are you smiling about?" Natalie asked, keeping her voice casual. Chad looked up, startled. The smile vanished. "What? Nothing. Just something funny a colleague sent. Can I see?" His grip on the phone tightened. "It is just a stupid meme. You would not find it funny. Try me." "Natalie, seriously, it is nothing." His tone shifted, became defensive. "Why are you interrogating me about a text message?" "I am not interrogating you. I just asked a question. You have been weird all week, asking about the park, questioning where I go, what I do. It is exhausting. I feel like I am living under surveillance." The irony was so perfect it almost made her laugh. He was living under surveillance, had been for days, and the evidence of his betrayal was documented in meticulous detail on a thumb drive in her purse. "I am sorry," she said instead. "You are right. I have been stressed. Work has been intense." Chad relaxed slightly. "I know. Me too. Budget season is killing me. I am just tired. Tired of lying," she thought. Tired of maintaining two separate lives. Tired of coming home to the wife who was supposed to believe every word he said. "We should go to bed," she said. "It is late." They turned off the lights. Chad fell asleep quickly, his breathing deep and regular. Natalie lay awake in the darkness, counting down the hours until Thursday. 72 hours. Then 60. Then 48. Tuesday morning, Natalie dropped Ivy at school and drove to her office. She had 3 client meetings scheduled, presentations she delivered on autopilot, while her mind calculated logistics. Where to park at the hospital, what time to arrive, what to say when she saw Chad's face. She went through the scenarios methodically, preparing for every possible reaction. During her lunch break, she received a text from Theodore Klein. Just 4 words, "I will be there." She responded, 3:30, North Parking Structure, Level 3. His reply came immediately. Understood. Natalie deleted the messages and returned to work. That evening, Chad announced he needed to work late Wednesday. A meeting with department heads that had been scheduled last minute. He would not be home until 9 or 9:30. Natalie said that was fine. She would handle dinner and bedtime with Ivy. She watched him carefully as he delivered this news, looking for signs of deception. But his expression was smooth, practiced. He had been lying for so long that it came naturally now. Wednesday evening arrived. Chad texted at 6 to say the meeting was running long. He would grab dinner at the hospital cafeteria. Natalie fed Ivy mac and cheese, gave her a bath, read her 3 stories before bed. When Ivy finally fell asleep, Natalie went to her office and reviewed the evidence one more time. The photographs, the audio, the timeline. Everything was ready. She checked her phone. 8:45. She opened the tracking app she had installed on Chad's phone 3 days ago, a small piece of spyware that Helen had provided. According to the GPS, Chad's phone was not at the hospital. It was at an apartment complex 15 minutes away. The same apartment complex where, according to Helen's research, Vanessa Klein had rented a small one-bedroom unit 3 months ago, a place for them to meet without children or spouses or colleagues watching. Natalie stared at the blinking dot on her screen. Her husband was with his mistress right now, in an apartment, while she sat at home with their daughter. The audacity of it was staggering, the sheer, brazen confidence that he would never be caught. At 9:45, the dot started moving, back toward their neighborhood. Chad arrived home at 10:05, exactly when he said he would. He came upstairs to their bedroom, where Natalie was already in bed with a book. "Hey," he said. "Sorry that ran so late. Budget projections took forever." "No problem. How did it go?" "Exhausting. You know how those meetings are. Everyone has opinions. Nobody wants to compromise." He pulled off his shirt and tossed it in the hamper. "I am going to take a quick shower." Natalie watched him walk into the bathroom. She heard the water start, heard him step into the shower. She waited 30 seconds, then quietly got out of bed and went to the hamper. She pulled out the shirt he had been wearing. It smelled like perfume, not her perfume. Something floral and sweet, the scent of another woman. She put the shirt back and returned to bed, her hands shaking. Tomorrow, tomorrow, this would all be over. Thursday morning dawned gray and cold, the sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain. Natalie woke before her alarm, adrenaline already coursing through her system. She showered and dressed carefully. Black slacks, white blouse, gray blazer, professional, controlled. She braided her long brown hair and checked her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked calm and composed. No one would guess that in 6 hours she would be destroying multiple lives. She made breakfast for Ivy, packed her lunch, drove her to school. At the drop-off line, Ivy unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned over to kiss Natalie's cheek. "Love you, Mommy. Love you too, baby. Have a good day." She watched Ivy run into the school building, her purple backpack bouncing. Then she drove to her office. She had cleared her afternoon schedule, told her assistant she had a personal appointment, and would not be back until tomorrow. Her assistant had not asked questions. Natalie never took unscheduled time off. Something serious must be happening. At 2:30, Natalie left her office and drove to Regional Medical Center. The parking structure was massive, 6 levels of concrete and shadows. She parked on level 3, north section, in a spot with a clear view of the elevators. Then she waited. At 3:15, Theodore Klein's Mercedes pulled in 2 spaces away. He got out and walked to her car, sliding into the passenger seat. He looked exhausted, like he had not slept in days. Probably because he had not. "Are you ready?" Natalie asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." They did not speak after that. They sat in silence, watching cars come and go, watching hospital staff change shifts. Natalie's heart hammered against her ribs. Her hands were cold despite the car's heater. She thought about turning back, about driving away, about pretending she had never discovered any of this. But that was impossible. You could not unknow truth. You could only decide what to do with it. At 3:40, Vanessa Klein's silver sedan pulled onto level 3. She parked near the elevator, in the same spot she always parked according to Helen's surveillance. Vanessa got out, checked her phone, leaned against her car, waiting. 5 minutes later, Chad emerged from the elevator. He wore his work clothes, dress shirt and slacks, looking every bit the respectable hospital administrator. He walked directly to Vanessa. She smiled when she saw him, the kind of smile that said home, that said safety. He reached her, and they stood close, not quite touching, aware they were still in a public place where colleagues might see. "Now," Natalie said. She and Theodore got out of her car simultaneously. They walked toward Chad and Vanessa, their footsteps echoing in the concrete structure. Chad saw them first. His expression went through a rapid progression of emotions: confusion, recognition, panic. He froze completely, his face draining of color. Vanessa followed his gaze and turned. When she saw Theodore, she gasped, actually stumbled backward against her car. Natalie stopped 3 feet from Chad. Theodore stopped beside her, facing his wife. The four of them formed a terrible tableau in the gray afternoon light. "Hi, honey," Natalie said, her voice calm and steady. "Surprise?" Chad's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked between Natalie and Theodore, his mind visibly scrambling for an explanation, for an escape route. "What are you doing here?" he finally managed. His voice was too high, too tight. "Did something happen? Is Ivy okay?" "Ivy is fine. She is at school, completely unaware that her father is a liar and a cheater." "What?" "Natalie, I do not know what you think is happening here, but—" "Do not," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "Do not insult me by lying to my face. Not anymore." Theodore stepped forward, his attention on Vanessa. "How long?" His voice was rough with emotion. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Theo, please, I can explain. This is not what it looks like." 2 years, Natalie answered for her. They have been having an affair for at least 2 years, meeting at the park with their children, having lunches during work hours, renting an apartment for their secret meetings. 2 years of systematic, deliberate betrayal. Chad found his voice, shifting immediately to offense. "You followed me? You spied on me? That is insane, Natalie. That is absolutely insane. What is insane is thinking you could have an affair for 2 years and never get caught. What is insane is using our daughter as cover to spend time with your mistress. What is insane is lying to my face every single day while planning your exit strategy. I have no idea what you are talking about. Yes, Vanessa and I work together. Yes, we are friends. But you have twisted everything into something it is not because you are paranoid and controlling." Vanessa jumped on the defense. "He is right. We work together. We have coffee sometimes. That is all. You cannot destroy my marriage, my career, based on paranoid suspicions." Theodore laughed, a harsh sound. "Paranoid? Show them." Natalie pulled out her phone and opened the photos. She held it up so both Chad and Vanessa could see. Photographs of them at the restaurant, leaning close across the table. At the park, sitting together while children played. In the hospital parking lot, his hand on her lower back. Chad's face shifted. Those are taken out of context. Those are innocent moments between colleagues. Are they? Natalie swiped to the next image. Chad and Vanessa in her car, visible through the window, kissing. The timestamp showed 2 weeks ago, a Wednesday afternoon. The silence was absolute. "Still innocent?" Natalie asked. Chad's defensive anger collapsed into something else, something that looked almost like relief, as if he was tired of pretending, tired of the constant lies. "Okay, fine. Yes, we have been seeing each other. But Natalie, you have to understand. Our marriage was already over. We have been living like roommates for years. I was unhappy, and I found someone who made me happy. So this is my fault. You cheated on me because I made you unhappy? I am not saying it is your fault. I am saying our marriage was broken long before Vanessa. She is not the problem. She is a symptom." Vanessa was crying now, mascara running down her face. She turned to Theodore. "I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted this to happen. He told me his marriage was ending anyway, that they were already separated emotionally. I thought I was helping someone who was suffering." Theodore's expression was ice. "You thought sleeping with a married man while you were married with 3 children at home was helping? You thought lying to me for 2 years was helping? He pursued me. For months, he made me feel special, like I mattered. You are never home, Theo. You work all the time. I was lonely. So you solved your loneliness by destroying our family?" Theodore pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "These are divorce papers. I have already filed. You will be served officially tomorrow, but I wanted you to know now. I want full custody of the children. You will have supervised visitation until we determine you are a fit parent." Vanessa's face crumpled. "No, no, You cannot take my babies. Please, Theo. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. Counseling? Theodore's voice rose. You want counseling after 2 years of lies? After systematically destroying everything we built together? No, we are done. Chad tried a different approach, his voice softening, becoming pleading. He reached for Natalie's arm. She stepped back. Please, can we talk about this privately? Just you and me. We have been together 12 years. That has to mean something. We have a daughter together. We owe it to Ivy to try. Do not use our daughter to manipulate me. You already used her enough as your alibi. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But people make mistakes. Marriages survive affairs. We can survive this if you are willing to try. Natalie looked at him. Really looked at him. This man she had loved, had trusted, had built a life with, and she felt nothing but contempt. You are right, she said quietly. Marriages can survive affairs, but they cannot survive 2 years of calculated deception. They cannot survive gaslighting and manipulation. They cannot survive using your child as a shield for your betrayal. This was not a mistake, Chad. This was a choice. Hundreds of choices, made every single day for 2 years. Everyone deserves a second chance. You had chances. Every morning you woke up next to me. Every dinner we shared. Every time you kissed our daughter goodnight, and then texted your mistress. Those were all chances to stop, to be honest, to do the right thing. You chose differently every single time. Natalie pulled another item from her purse, the small recording device. She pressed play. Chad's voice filled the parking structure. I know it is hard. I know you are tired of waiting, but I need to find the right moment. I cannot just leave out of nowhere. She let it play for 30 seconds, then stopped it. You were planning to leave me. You were just waiting for the right strategic moment. So do not stand there and tell me you want to save our marriage. You want it out. You just wanted to control the timing. Chad stared at the ground, his defenses finally exhausted. Vanessa made one last desperate play. She grabbed Theodore's arm. Please, think about the kids. Think about what this will do to them. They need their mother. They need their family intact. Theodore removed her hand from his arm with deliberate care. They need a mother who has integrity, who keeps her commitments, who does not teach them that betrayal is acceptable. You are not that mother right now. Maybe someday you will be, but not today. He turned to Natalie. There is one more thing. I contacted Human Resources yesterday, filed a formal complaint about workplace misconduct. Chad is Vanessa's supervisor. Their relationship violates hospital policy. There will be an investigation. They will both face consequences. Chad's head snapped up. You cannot do that. That will destroy my career. You destroyed your own career when you decided to sleep with a subordinate. Those are the consequences of your choices. This is revenge. This is petty vindictiveness. No, Natalie said. This is accountability. Something you have avoided for 2 years. She looked at Vanessa, who was still crying against her car. Your husband deserves better than you. Your children deserve better than you. And whatever you thought you had with Chad, whatever fantasy you built in your head, it was never real. It was built on lies and stolen moments. That is not love. That is just selfishness dressed up as romance. Natalie turned back to Chad. My attorney will contact you tomorrow. I am filing for divorce. I am seeking primary custody of Ivy. You will have visitation rights, but I will be documenting everything. Every late pickup, every broken promise, every time you put your needs above hers. And if you fight me on custody, I will make sure the judge sees every piece of evidence I have, every photograph, every text message, every lie. You are really going to do this? You are going to destroy our family over this? I am not destroying our family. You already did that. I am just making sure Ivy has at least one parent she can trust. Natalie walked back to her car. Theodore followed. They got in, and she started the engine. Through the windshield, she watched Chad approach Vanessa. He tried to put his arm around her to comfort her. She shoved him away violently, screaming something Natalie could not hear through the glass. Their perfect affair was disintegrating in real time, collapsing under the weight of consequences they had never truly believed would come. Natalie drove out of the parking structure. In her rearview mirror, she saw Vanessa sink to the ground beside her car, still crying. Chad stood over her, hands hanging uselessly at his sides, looking lost. She felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just a cold, clear certainty that she had done what needed to be done. "Thank you," Theodore said quietly from the passenger seat. "For what?" "For having the courage to do this. I would have lived in denial forever. Would have kept believing the best of her until there was nothing left of me. We both deserved the truth. What happens now? Now we rebuild. Separately. But at least on foundations that are real." She drove Theodore back to his car. He got out, paused with the door open. "If you need anything during the divorce process, a recommendation for an attorney, or just someone who understands, call me." "Thank you." "Same to you." He closed the door and walked to his Mercedes. Natalie sat alone in her car for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Then she drove to Ivy's school for pickup. Her daughter came running out, face bright with joy. "Mommy, we made turkeys out of handprints today. Want to see?" "I would love to see." She drove them home, made dinner, helped with homework, read bedtime stories, maintained the routine that kept Ivy's world stable and safe. At 8:30, Chad still had not come home. Natalie was not surprised. At 9:15, her phone rang. Chad's name on the screen. She let it go to voicemail. He called again. Again, she let it ring. The third time, she answered. "We need to talk," he said. His voice sounded hollow. "No, we do not. My attorney will be in touch tomorrow." "Natalie, please. Just give me 5 minutes." "Why? So you can try to manipulate me again? Make promises you have no intention of keeping?" "No, Chad. We are done talking. The only conversations we will have from now on will be about Ivy's schedule and well-being. Everything else goes through lawyers. I never wanted it to end like this. How did you want it to end? With you leaving me for her after you had everything perfectly arranged? After you had convinced yourself I was the villain and she was your salvation? You wanted an ending that let you feel like the good guy. Sorry, you do not get that. I did love you. Once. Maybe. But you stopped. And instead of being honest about it, you lied for 2 years. That is what I cannot forgive. Not the affair. The lies." She hung up, turned off her phone, sat in the darkness of her living room, and finally let herself cry. Not for Chad, not for the marriage, but for the future she had imagined, for the family that would never be whole again, for Ivy, who would grow up with divorced parents and weekend custody arrangements and 2 separate houses. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and logistics and difficult conversations. But tonight, Natalie let herself grieve. The morning after the confrontation, Natalie woke to an empty house. Chad had not come home. His side of the bed remained untouched, the sheets still crisp and cold. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the panic to hit, but it never came. Instead, she felt something unexpected, relief. The pretending was over. The exhausting performance of normalcy had ended. Whatever came next would at least be real. She got up, showered, and dressed. She made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful and terrible, like everything else lately. At 7, she heard movement upstairs. Ivy padding down the hallway, still in her pajamas, hair tangled from sleep. "Morning, baby," Natalie said, forcing brightness into her voice. "Morning, Mommy." "Where is Daddy?" The question she had been dreading. Natalie pulled Ivy into her lap, smoothing her daughter's hair. "Daddy had to work early today, but he loves you very much." Ivy accepted this without question, the way 6-year-olds accepted so many things. Her world was still safe, still predictable. Natalie would do everything in her power to keep it that way. She took Ivy to school, kissed her goodbye, watched her run toward her friends. Then she drove to the office of Margaret Chen. No, not Chen. Margaret Morrison, the divorce attorney Helen Torres had recommended. Margaret was in her late 50s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen every variation of marital warfare. Her office was elegant, but not ostentatious, decorated in calming blues and grays. "Tell me everything," Margaret said, pen poised over a legal pad. So Natalie did. The whole story, from the first suspicions to yesterday's confrontation. She showed Margaret all the evidence, the photographs, the audio recordings, the location data, the credit card statements. 2 years of betrayal, documented in meticulous detail. Margaret reviewed everything in silence, making occasional notes. When Natalie finished, Margaret set down her pen and looked at her directly. "You have an exceptionally strong case. The evidence is comprehensive and irrefutable. With the proof of infidelity, the financial documentation, and the fact that he used your daughter as cover, we can petition for primary custody. He will get visitation, but you will have the final say on major decisions regarding her upbringing. That is all I want. Ivy needs stability. What about assets? Do you want to pursue a more aggressive division?" Natalie thought about it. She could make this ugly, could fight for every dollar, every piece of furniture, every shared memory reduced to a line item on a balance sheet. But what would that accomplish? Chad had already lost what mattered: his integrity, his family, his future with Vanessa, which would crumble under the weight of reality and consequences. "I want what is fair," Natalie said. "Equitable division, child support, but I do not want to bleed him dry. I just want to move forward." Margaret smiled slightly. "That is remarkably mature. Most of my clients want blood. I wanted blood yesterday. Today, I just want peace." Margaret drafted the initial paperwork while Natalie waited. Petition for divorce citing irreconcilable differences and infidelity. Request for primary custody. Proposed division of assets. It took 2 hours, and when it was done, Natalie's hand shook as she signed the documents. 12 years of marriage, reduced to legal terminology and notarized signatures. "I will have these served to him at work tomorrow," Margaret said. "Be prepared. He will likely try to contact you, to convince you to reconsider. Do not engage. All communication should go through me from this point forward. Understood." Natalie left Margaret's office and sat in her car for a long time. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from Chad, 12 text messages. She read them without responding. They followed a predictable pattern: anger, then denial, then pleading, then blame. "You are destroying our family over a mistake. Ivy will hate you for this. I thought we could work through anything. This is your fault too. You pushed me away. Vanessa means nothing. It was just physical. I am begging you. Please do not do this." Natalie deleted the messages. She forwarded the calls to voicemail. Margaret was right. Engaging would only give him ammunition, only open doors that needed to stay closed. Over the next 3 weeks, the machinery of divorce ground forward with bureaucratic efficiency. Chad was served at work, causing a scene that became hospital gossip within hours. The Human Resources investigation proceeded, interviewing witnesses, reviewing security footage of Chad and Vanessa leaving together during work hours, entering her car, spending extended time in the parking structure. Within 2 weeks, both received official reprimands. Chad was demoted from his administrative position. Vanessa was transferred to a different department. Her shifts changed to nights. Theodore Klein's divorce moved even faster. With 3 children and clear evidence of infidelity, the court sided heavily in his favor. He got primary custody. Vanessa received supervised visitation every other weekend. The house, the savings, the investments, all divided in his favor. She moved into a small apartment, the same one she had rented for her affair, now her permanent residence. The irony was not lost on anyone. Chad tried everything to change Natalie's mind. He showed up at the house unannounced, forcing her to threaten a restraining order. He sent flowers with cards that said, "I am sorry," and "Please forgive me." He called her parents, her friends, anyone who might advocate on his behalf, but Natalie had shown them all the evidence. There were no advocates left. One evening, about a month after the confrontation, Chad came to pick up Ivy for his first overnight visitation. He had moved into a small apartment across town, sparsely furnished, sad in the way places become sad when occupied by people who had lost everything. Natalie answered the door, keeping her expression neutral. "Hi," Chad said. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Gray had spread through his temples. "Is Ivy ready?" "She is upstairs getting her backpack. She will be down in a minute." They stood in awkward silence. Chad shifted his weight from foot to foot. "How are you?" "Fine." "Natalie, I know you do not want to hear this, but I need to say it. I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I destroyed everything good in my life because I was selfish and stupid. I know I cannot fix this. I know you will never forgive me, but I need you to know that I regret it. Every day. Every single day." Natalie studied him, this broken man who used to be her husband. She felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sadness. Just a vast, empty distance. "Okay," she said. "That is it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Chad? That I forgive you? I do not. That I understand? I do not. You made choices that destroyed our family. Now we all live with the consequences. Do you think, maybe someday, we could be friends? For Ivy's sake? Maybe. Someday. But not today." Ivy came running downstairs, backpack bouncing. "Daddy!" She threw herself into his arms. Chad held her tight, his eyes closing, and for a moment Natalie saw real pain in his face. Whatever else he had done, he loved his daughter. That, at least, was real. "Be good for Daddy," Natalie said, kissing Ivy's forehead. "I will pick you up tomorrow at 6. She watched them drive away, her daughter waving from the back window. Then she went inside and closed the door. The house felt huge and empty. Silent in a way it had not been in years, but it was her silence now, her space, her life to rebuild. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Natalie received primary custody of Ivy. Chad got visitation every other weekend and 1 evening per week. The house was sold, assets divided. Natalie bought a smaller place closer to Ivy's school, a cozy 2-bedroom with a backyard and good light. She decorated it carefully, creating spaces that felt warm and safe. Ivy's room was painted lavender, filled with her favorite things. A fresh start. Chad moved into a better apartment. He began therapy, addressing whatever had driven him to risk everything. He showed up on time for visitation, never missed a payment. He was trying, in his broken way, to be a better father. Natalie appreciated that, even if she could never forgive the husband he had been. Vanessa's life collapsed more spectacularly. The affair with Chad ended within days of the confrontation, both of them blaming the other for the exposure. She lost her marriage, her home, primary custody of her children. Her night shift hours made parenting difficult. Her supervised visitations with her kids were strained, her children angry and confused. She tried reaching out to Chad several times, but he blocked her number. The fantasy had died the moment reality intruded. What they thought was love had only been the thrill of secrecy, the dopamine rush of forbidden desire. Without that, nothing remained. Theodore Klein threw himself into his children. He cut back his surgical hours, hired a nanny, showed up for every school event and soccer game. His 3 kids struggled initially, but with therapy and routine, they adjusted. Natalie saw him occasionally at school functions, their daughters in the same grade. They would nod politely, 2 survivors of the same shipwreck, rebuilding on separate shores. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Natalie sat in her new kitchen on a Saturday morning, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Ivy was upstairs, still asleep after a sleepover with friends. The house was quiet, but not lonely. Peaceful. Her phone buzzed. A text from Chad. "Can we talk? Not about us. About Ivy." She called him. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. I just wanted to ask if it is okay if I take her to the Science Museum next weekend. There is a special exhibit on space exploration she has been talking about." "That sounds great. She would love that." A pause. "Thank you for being reasonable about all this, for not using her as a weapon. She is not a weapon. She is our daughter. We both love her. That has not changed." "No, it has not." Another pause. "Are you happy, Natalie?" The question surprised her. She thought about it honestly. "I am getting there. Some days are harder than others. But yes, I think I am happy." "Good. You deserve to be happy." "So do you, Chad. I hope you find that." "I am trying. Therapy helps. Understanding why I made such catastrophically bad decisions, why I was willing to destroy everything. And have you figured it out?" "Some of it. Fear of aging. Fear of becoming invisible. Vanessa made me feel young and exciting. But it was all illusion. Borrowed time that was never really mine. I threw away something real for something fake. At least you understand that now. For whatever it is worth, I loved you. I know I have said that before, and I know you do not believe me, but I did. I just forgot how to show it, forgot how to protect it, and by the time I remembered, it was too late." Natalie felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness, exactly, but perhaps the beginning of letting go. "I believe you loved me. Once. But you also hurt me in ways I am still processing. Maybe one day I will fully heal from that. Maybe not. But I am trying. That is all any of us can do. Try." They ended the call. Natalie set down her phone and looked around her kitchen. This house that was hers. This life that was hers. It was not the life she had planned, not the fairy tale she had imagined 12 years ago on a beach at sunset, but it was real, honest, built on truth rather than illusion. 8 months after the divorce, Natalie was picking up Ivy from school when she ran into Theodore Klein. His daughter had just gotten into his car, waving at Ivy through the window. Theodore walked over, smiling. "Natalie, how are you?" "Good. Really good, actually. You?" "Same. The kids are doing better. My oldest finally stopped asking when Mommy is coming home. Hard to hear, but also a relief in some ways. I understand. Ivy asks about Chad and me getting back together sometimes. I try to be honest without destroying her hope. It is a delicate balance." Theodore hesitated. "Listen, I know this might be completely inappropriate, and please feel free to say no, but would you want to get coffee sometime? Not a date. Just two people who have been through similar trauma, comparing notes on survival." Natalie considered. Theodore was handsome, kind, clearly a devoted father, but she was not ready. Not for dating, not for anything that resembled romance. Her life was still too raw, too freshly rebuilt. "Can I be honest?" she said. "Please. I am not ready for anything romantic. Not with you, not with anyone. I am still figuring out who I am outside of my marriage. But I would like to have coffee as friends, as two people who understand what the other has been through." Theodore smiled. "Friends sounds perfect. And for what it is worth, I am not ready either. But it helps to know I am not the only one rebuilding. You are definitely not alone." They exchanged numbers, made plans for coffee the following week. As Natalie drove home with Ivy chattering in the back seat about her day, she felt something she had not felt in years. Hope, not for a specific future, not for a particular outcome, just general hope that life could be good again, that trust could be rebuilt, that happiness was not a destination, but a practice, something you chose every day. 10 months after the divorce, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Natalie took Ivy to a park. Not the park where Chad had met Vanessa. A different one, across town, with better equipment and fewer ghosts. They spent the afternoon on the swings, racing down slides, building elaborate structures in the sandbox. Ivy's laughter rang clear and bright, untroubled by the complexities of adult relationships. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, they sat on a bench sharing a bag of popcorn. Ivy leaned against Natalie's side, tired and content. "Mommy," Ivy said. "Yes, baby? Are you sad that Daddy does not live with us anymore?" Natalie considered how to answer. She wanted to be honest without burdening her daughter with adult pain. "Sometimes I am sad about how things turned out, but I am not sad about our life now. I love our house. I love our time together. And Daddy loves you very much. That has not changed. But do you still love Daddy? I love the father he is to you. I love the memories we have as a family. But the kind of love that grown-ups have in a marriage? No, that changed. Because he made bad choices? Yes. Because he made bad choices, and I made the choice to not accept those choices. Sometimes love is not enough if people are not honest with each other." Ivy processed this silently for a moment. Then she said, "I think you are brave, Mommy." Natalie's throat tightened. "Why do you say that?" "Because you did something scary to make things better, even though it was hard." Natalie pulled her daughter close, kissing the top of her head. "Thank you, baby. That means everything to me." They sat together as the sun completed its descent, the park gradually emptying around them. Natalie thought about the woman she had been a year ago, suspicious, frightened, trapped in a marriage built on lies. That woman felt like a stranger now, someone she had once known but no longer inhabited. The woman she was now was harder, yes, more cautious, slower to trust, but also stronger, more honest with herself, unwilling to accept less than she deserved. She had walked through fire and emerged with burns and scars, but also with clarity, with the knowledge that she could survive anything, that she could rebuild from ashes. A year after the confrontation in the parking structure, Natalie received an unexpected message from Vanessa Klein. Just 2 sentences. "I know you have no reason to listen to me, but I owe you an apology. You were right about everything." Natalie stared at the message for a long time. She thought about responding, about telling Vanessa exactly how much damage she had caused, how many lives she had helped destroy. But what would be the point? Vanessa was living with the consequences of her choices. Her children barely spoke to her. Her career had stalled. Her fantasy of a life with Chad had evaporated like morning fog. She was already serving her sentence. Natalie deleted the message without responding. Some apologies did not deserve acknowledgement. Some bridges were meant to stay burned. Instead, she called Theodore. They had been meeting for coffee every few weeks, their friendship deepening into something genuine. Not romance, though Natalie sensed the potential there, waiting patiently for both of them to heal enough to explore it. "Hey," she said when he answered, "are you free this weekend? I was thinking maybe we could take the kids to that pumpkin patch outside town. Ivy has been asking about it." "That sounds great. My kids would love that. Can I bring the hot chocolate?" "Only if I can bring the donuts." "Deal." They made plans, discussing logistics and schedules, and which day had better weather forecasted. Ordinary conversation between 2 people building something new. Not on the ashes of their old lives, but alongside them. Acknowledging the past without being defined by it. That Saturday, they met at the pumpkin patch. 4 children running through fields of orange, laughing and competing to find the perfect pumpkin. Natalie and Theodore followed behind, talking easily, watching their kids play together without the shadow of betrayal. At one point, Ivy ran back to Natalie, dragging a pumpkin almost as big as she was. "Mommy, look! Can we get this one?" "That is perfect, baby." Theodore's oldest son found one equally massive. The kids compared pumpkins, debating which was better. Theodore caught Natalie's eye and smiled. They did not need to say anything. They both understood. This was not about forgetting the past. It was about choosing to build a future anyway. As the sun set over the pumpkin patch, Natalie lifted Ivy onto her shoulders, her daughter's hands tangled in her hair, her weight warm and solid. They walked toward the car, Theodore and his children beside them, and Natalie felt something she had not felt in years. Complete, not because of a man, not because of a relationship, but because she had fought for herself and won. Because she had chosen truth over comfort. Because she had rebuilt from ruins and created something better. She thought about the woman she had been in that parking structure a year ago, cold with fury and heartbreak, confronting the man who had destroyed their marriage. That woman had been terrified of what came next, of the empty unknown stretching before her. If Natalie could go back and tell her anything, it would be this: you will survive. You will more than survive. You will become someone stronger, someone braver, someone who knows her own worth and refuses to settle for less. The divorce had not been the end of her story. It had been the beginning of a better chapter, one written in her own words, on her own terms, with characters who deserved to be there. As they loaded pumpkins into the car and buckled in children sticky with hot chocolate and caramel apples, as Theodore squeezed her hand briefly in goodbye, as Ivy chattered about all the things they would carve into their pumpkin, Natalie felt it fully. Peace. Real, hard-won, deeply earned peace. She had walked through the valley of betrayal and emerged on the other side, not unscathed, but whole, not unchanged, but better. The scars remained, would always remain, but they were proof of survival. Evidence that she had faced the worst and kept going. That night, after Ivy was asleep, her perfect pumpkin sitting on the porch waiting to be carved, Natalie stood in her kitchen and looked around. This house, this life, this future she was building one day at a time. It was not the fairy tale, but it was real, honest, hers. And that, she realized, was more than enough. It was everything. Outside, the moon rose over her small backyard, painting everything in silver light. Inside, her daughter slept peacefully, dreaming of pumpkins and adventures. And Natalie stood in the quiet house she had made into a home, and felt, for the first time in years, genuinely happy. Not the desperate happiness of denial, not the false happiness of pretending everything was fine, but the deep, bone-level happiness of a woman who had fought for herself and won, who had demanded truth and refused to settle for anything less, who had walked through fire and came out forged into something stronger. The past would always be there, a landscape she had crossed but could not change. But the future stretched ahead full of possibility, and Natalie was ready for it, ready to trust again when the time was right. Ready to love again when she found someone worthy, ready to build a life that honored her own strength and resilience. She had been broken, she had healed, and in the healing, she had become someone new, someone better, someone she was proud to be. That was the real ending, not revenge, not reconciliation, just a woman standing in her own kitchen, in her own house, living her own truth, whole, free, finally, completely herself. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.